I got the driveway all cleaned up. It didn't take a whole lot. There was just about 2 inches of dry snow on there, so it went pretty quick. The worst part of it is just trying to scrape the ice off. It builds up. Every day it builds up a little bit more on there because even though it's cold, it just warms up just enough to melt a little bit of that stuff, and with the ground froze up hard, it just keeps building up on the ground. Well, I'm keeping it scraped down, but it's getting slipperier and slipperier all the time. Got to be careful going down that hill there. It's pretty steep. Sometimes it takes off pretty good going down there. The wife is out there at the chicken coop cleaning the snow off of that. We got a tarp over the chicken coop there to keep the chicken pen dry, most of it, so that builds up snow on it. She's out there knocking the snow off of it. It's got Haji excited because the chickens didn't like it very well. It hasn't been too cold so far this winter. It got down to 16 degrees for one night. Mostly it's been around 25 or so, but it's supposed to get down to 0 or thereabouts here the next few days. I was thinking about that, plowing snow. We haven't had a whole lot of snow, so I plowed up some of it up against the house there on this side, the cabin, to kind of bank that. Now I'm going to go around the cabin there and bank the snow around it. It's up on piling stubs or up on blocks in the air, and the floor is insulated pretty good, but with the cold air gets underneath it there, it still makes that floor cold and the house colder. So banking it like this makes a big difference on that. Snow is a pretty good insulator. Well, I just went in the house and got my cork shoes on. Stuff's slippery. I was wearing my regular shoes. So I don't like wearing my cork shoes when I'm in the shop working on the floor because they dig the floor up so bad. Well, this side's pretty good. You got to get around the porch, and that's the problem. The porch there sticks out and you can't get underneath it to bank around the house there. So I'll have to get some snow and put around the porch, kind of close it in, and I'll have to get the rest of the backside there. I've got about half of the backside of it done, and I have to get in there and shovel snow against all that because I couldn't get the machine in there to push it up in there. And then the other side over there, we've got enough snow that slid off the roof that we can cover it up. Might have to pack a little snow in for it. But anyway, that should help quite a bit in keeping the cabin warm when the temperature gets really cold. I got the cabin pretty well banked. I'd pushed the snow against it here as I was plowing snow the last few times up to the cabin. I didn't push it up against it because it's too easy just to push against it and damage the cabin or building or whatever. Even with the snow on there to cushion you, it pushed a lot of pressure on it. But I got it up there close, and I took the shovel and finished filling in the gap there. And I pushed snow back here as close as I could get it, and then shoveled the rest of it in. And we had loose snow back here that we went ahead and filled the rest of it in with. The other side over there, there was quite a bit of snow that slid off the roofs of the house and piled up there, and then my wife took the scoop and hauled in some more snow to finish filling that up. Here around the front, I had to use the scoop there. I didn't think ahead far enough to push snow up against it from the front here when I was plowing snow, but I got the scoop there and went out through the area there by the sawmill and out around there and got enough snow that I was able to bring in here and fill that up around the porch. So the weak point here is around the porch. There's a gap between the porch and the house, of course, and the porch boards there aren't tight or insulated. And then, like I said, there's a gap over here, and then of course there's a gap underneath the steps that the cold air can get into. But that's a big improvement over what it was, and that should help a lot with the cold air. And it also gives the cats a way to get in and out there underneath the house, underneath the cabin. And last year we had to go down south in January for my wife's eye surgery. When we came back, there was about 2 foot of snow on the ground, and then it was forecast to get cold. I guess it did get cold when we got back, so we banked it around here then, like that. We were able to get most of it from pretty close, but that made a big difference on the heating of the house. The house actually stayed warm even though it got down to around 0 or so. So this should make a big difference on that. It's not that cold today. I think it got, well, it's 30 right now. It got a little bit warmer than that today, which was not good because that melts this crap on the driveway, and then of course it doesn't melt the ground, so it freezes up. Anyway, the forecast is to get cold and stay cold for the next week or so, and it's starting to clear off. We got sunset showing up now. You can see pink on the clouds up there and a little blue sky over there on the horizon on the other side of those hills. So that's what it's supposed to be for a few days. Now, when I was a kid in Idaho, we'd usually get a couple feet of snow early before it got cold, and it was easy to go around the house then and bank the house around there and just shovel around the path around the house and throw it up against the footings, the foundation of the house, and around the walls on it. It made a big difference on the heat in the houses. But here it's so hit and miss on when we get snow. Usually we got snow early this winter, but we didn't get a whole lot. And then it got cold, and then it warmed up and it rained. Now we got a little bit of snow again. Now it's going to get clear off and get cold. So it's just hit or miss what we're going to get. And like last year, it got cold for a few days, and then it warmed up and rained, and of course all the snow melted away from the cabin, so there wasn't any more snow to bank it up with again after that. That's probably what'll happen here. As soon as it warms up, that snow will melt away from the cabin. There's a lot of heat in that ground underneath there. There'll be steam and frost coming out between the cabin and the porch there, and freezing on the house walls there on that side. But anyway, that should make a big difference on the heat with the bitter cold that we're going to get, the 0 and whatnot, since that cabin is up off the ground and the air can get cold underneath it. February 9th today. Beautiful day. Blue sky and sunshine. Absolutely gorgeous. One of the first dry days. Well, we've had a couple of dry days, but it got a little snow flurries yesterday. Colder than a well digger's belt buckle, as the saying goes. It's about 10 degrees out here today. It was at minus 13 Celsius. Too cold to do much. It'd be a nice dry day, sunny day. The wind's not blowing today. Yesterday it was blowing pretty good, but no wind today. So it'd be a pretty good day to get out and get something done. But I'm by myself. My son's got to work. My wife's working today, and I don't really want to go out and cut any trees down or get out and do anything in the cold. Guy got hurt or something, you'd freeze to death before anybody come and found you. A few years ago, some friends of ours went out on a day like today on an ATV or a UTV, whatever it was called, and they got out there and got stuck. They didn't tell anybody where they were going, and they were out overnight. The woman stayed with the machine. The guy tried walking out to get help and wound up collapsing, and they wound up spending the night out and most of the next day out. She had some frostbite and some hypothermia. She recovered pretty good, but he got pretty bad frostbite in his spine, wound up being crippled and just died a few months later. Anyway, it's not a good idea to get out in the cold where you don't have some resources, somebody to help you out unless you absolutely have to. I used to do that all the time, but as I'm getting older, I don't know whether I'm getting wiser or not, or getting scareder, but anyhow, we're not going to do anything much today. It was 0 last night, minus 18. It's supposed to get that way again tonight. Next few days are supposed to be like this, maybe warming up just a little bit, maybe not quite so cold, we'll see. It's forecast to be snow flurries today, but I guess the high pressure area on the other side of the mountains is stronger than the low pressure area out here outside of us, to the west of us, and it's keeping that moisture at bay. So we got the cabin all banked up. That worked pretty good. Well, that cabin is 16 by 16, 14 foot tall. Maybe a little taller than that. Anyway, it's 2 stories. It's got 6-inch walls, 6-inch stud walls, and fiberglass insulation in the walls, so it's pretty well insulated. And we heat it with a 1500 watt electric heater. And half the year we don't even run that. But a few years ago, the power went out in the middle of the winter. It was cold like this, so I went and got a propane gas space heater, wall-mounted unvented heater, and put in there to use for heat when the power went out. And normally in the past years where we haven't had any snow and it got cold like this, we've had to use that propane heater at temperatures below about 15 degrees to keep it warm enough to be comfortable in the cabin This year we haven't had to start the propane heater at all, even at these temperatures here where it was 0 last night. Stayed comfortable in the cabin. And the heater isn't running full time in there either, so banking that cabin up like that made a big difference. Like I said, in years past we haven't had enough snow when it got cold like this to do that. Anyhow, fire went out in the shop last night. I got up at midnight and put some wood in it, but it went out. Didn't burn all night, or the rest of the night. Nobody got it started this morning, so it was 30 degrees in there when I went in there a while ago to check, which isn't too bad considering it's 0 outside and there's no insulation in the floor in that shop. So I got a fire going a couple hours ago and got the temperature up to about 40 degrees. It's still a little chilly in there. So while it's warming up in there some more, I'm going to go ahead and run to town and see if I can't find me a piece of dead animal flesh to bring home and stick in the roasting pan and roast it up for this evening.